Hello and welcome to the first tutorial on my channel. Today I'm gonna show you how to create this effect. So just before we start, I'm using Houdini 18.5 and you need at least Houdini 18, I think, because some nodes that we're gonna be using are not available in the 17.5 versions or any before. So make sure that you have that. So I'm gonna separate this tutorial in multiple parts. So first we're gonna model the wall that we're gonna be destroying, since this is how avidi destruction works. You first need to model what you're gonna destroy. So you first build it up and then break it down again. Then I'm gonna do a second part on how to fracture the wall that we just modeled. And then in the third part, I'm gonna bring everything together, so destroy the wall with a pyro simulation and bring that together. So let's get started. I just gonna drop a geonode here and name that to wall, probably with a capital W. And yeah, I'm gonna start by creating a box. And yeah, so to make this kind of look like a wall, I'm gonna choose 16 by 10 by 1, and as you can see, the wall is not really on the ground plane. So if we would add a grid, just for reference and template, you see it would not be standing on there. So to do that, I will click here and click copy parameter and click on the center and then the y-axis and paste relative reference. So, and delete the 0 in front of you, that doesn't belong here. So now it's the same, and you see now it's actually floating above. So to make it stand on the ground plane, we're gonna divide it by 2, like this. And now you can see it's actually standing on our ground plane. So next we need to delete all the polygons that we don't need. So I'm gonna select the one that I want. This is that one in my example, and then press delete. This now leaves me with all the polygons except the one I selected, but we actually want the opposite. So we select delete non-selected, which gives us the result we want. So next we're gonna make bricks from this wall. To do that, we're gonna put a divide node. So you can see it's actually triangulating our mesh right now, our polygon. So we don't want that, so we're gonna uncheck convex polygons, and you see it's gone now. And we're gonna check bricker polygons. Yeah, kind of the name says what it's doing. It's gonna brick our polygons in nice quads. That's also considered good topology. So let's do that. And we want it to be in divide by 16.8 and 0.5 or 0.5, however you want. And now we get this nice divided lines. So next, we're actually gonna create a group by range. And as you can see, so we can name this bricks 1 or whatever. You can see the range filter is actually set from 1 to 1 or 1 of 1. So every single one is selected. So we want 1 of 2. So every second one is selected. So as you can see, 1, then 1 not selected, not, and so on. So now we have this separate, separate in 2 groups. So the one that has a group and the others are not in a group. So now we can put on a blast, and once we say delete non-selected and then brick 1, and then on the other hand we gonna put delete and then actually delete the selected. So if we put a merge on right here and put that together, we actually get the exact same result that we had here. So we're actually gonna need the merge. So yeah, just before I do that, if you want to know how I do that, it's holding Y on your keyboard and then just left click and drag. So with that you can cut connection between nodes. It's a nice handy shortcut. So next is we're actually gonna divide this lines here to actual bricks. So to do that, we're gonna need another divide node. Turn off convex polygons and turn on bricker polygon. And as you can see already, this kind of looks like bricks already. We just want to make sure that we don't get any division on the Y, which right now we're not getting at all, but just to make sure we don't have any, we're gonna set this to 1000. Now we can duplicate the node to the other group, and now we can see we have some nice bricks here as well. And just to like work them together now, we have a wall of bricks, so this wouldn't be necessary. Just to create a nice effect, I'm gonna offset them by 0.5, so we get this nice brick looking wall, which is actually pretty cool. So now that we have this done, we actually need to separate each of these single bricks, and to do that we're gonna use a facet node. So just drag that and plug that in here. And now what I want to do is a nice trick that I use when I do destruction. I put on a primitive node and show that, and I want to enable transform, and I want to put this to 0.99 to 0.97 and to 0.98. And what this is doing is, if you zoom close here, you can see that some of the bricks are smaller, so with like little empty spaces between the bricks, which actually makes the simulation look more realistic, in my opinion. So you don't need to do this. I really like to do it. So now let's extrude it, the wall. I'm gonna extrude it, the bricks by 0.25, so we now got some nice geo here. And make sure to select output back, so we don't get this glitchy geometry on the back, or just unclosed geometry. I'm now gonna delete the group that we created to separate the bricks up here, because we no longer need it. So select bricks 1. And now actually I'm gonna create a new group, which I will call bricks, so we can actually separate the bricks from our concrete, which we're gonna create next. And we can put this inside a merge node array. So to start off the concrete, I'm gonna plug a new node coming from the blast that we already created, and I'm gonna put a poly extrude. And I'm gonna set this poly extrude to 0.05. If I check the visibility on, so we get this small, not so thick parts. And I'm gonna check output back as well, so we get a closed geometry. And now I just gonna put down the transform node like this, and I'm gonna translate this by -0.125, and I'm gonna plug that down here into the merge. And now if we see, that's actually not what I wanted. Okay, I found the problem, so it actually needs to be 0.325, and I actually want to create another one for the other side, so I'm just gonna duplicate this transform node, and right here I'm gonna set it to nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's just do it manually and drag it around a bit. Yeah, this looks good. Doesn't need to be perfect right now. And I'm actually gonna merge these two together before I merge it into the big thing here, because I want to put a group and name this concrete so we can fracture it more easily in the next part. So yeah, actually gonna move this a bit closer. that, and like that. So yeah, this is our wall. If you want, you can actually add more details to it and make it more realistic, but for our basic tutorial, this should be enough. So I'm gonna create a network box around it. So select everything, create a network box right here, and drag it around a bit and name it wall geo. So yeah, and in the next part, we're gonna talk about how to fracture it and how to cache the constraints and everything. So let's continue with creating a fracture for our newly modded wall we got here. So to get started, I'm gonna drop down the split node, which allows us to split our geometry into by groups. So I'm gonna select bricks. So if I pull out a null here and a null here, you're gonna see that right here we got our concrete parts and here we got our bricks. So we can actually fracture them differently and make them behave a little different and add some extra detail. So I'm gonna call that bricks and this concrete. And I'm gonna drop down an avidi material fracture. So it's gonna load a bit since it's quite a heavy node. And I hope my recording isn't crashing and you can still see what is happening. So plug that in here, and it might take a while to calculate, but when it's done, you should see something like that. Your wall fractured into smaller pieces, and we actually need to name our avidi material fracture. So to do that, I'm gonna click on fracture namespace right here, and I'm gonna name it bricks. And then I'm gonna turn on fracture per piece. So every brick we have inside here is gonna be fractured individually. So, and the piece attribute is actually named. So when we click right here, you see we have 500 primitives that have a unique name. So there are 500 bricks in here that have a unique name, so it can be identified by that. So next, we're also gonna play around with the fractures. So we need to rename this first. So I'm gonna name that to bricks fracture 1 and click on the 2 here to access the second one, and I'm gonna rename that to bricks fracture 2. So if you want any kind of more detail, you're gonna come here and you're gonna turn up scatter points. So assign the number, so I'm gonna put it to 20, for example. It's gonna take a little to process. And once it's done, we actually got a lot more cracks and a lot more smaller pieces. So you can basically increase this to there's no specific amount that is max, so if you need more detail, come here and increase the scatter points. There are also the settings chipping and detail, which I'm not going to go over, but if you're interested in that, you probably can just read the documentation. It's not that complicated. It's just a really nice feature if you want to add some more detail. So once we created our fracture and we're happy with that, which is the case for me right now, we can create bricks in avidi.io, so an import output for IBDs. So, and if you don't want to always drag everything manually, you can shift click each of this and then just left click on the first one, and it's gonna link everything up manually for you. And since I already created this project, I'm actually gonna load my own cache, so I don't my old cache, so I actually don't need to do that right now. And I actually also gonna save the project right now. And I also recommend you to save your project on a regular basis so you don't lose anything. tutorial, save. Well, that's doing its thing. I can drink. Oh, come on. Oh, so I know that my old cache is in /hip/final/geo/os/ no, not slash, like that, and I'm gonna check load from disk, and I'm gonna click that, and that's actually the old cache I created earlier for the project you saw in the intro, and I'm gonna continue using that. So now we're gonna pack this avidi that we simmed out with an avidi pack node. So shift click on these nodes and, oh, never mind, and plug them in here. What it's going to do is it will allow us to merge the two avidi material factors together, so we can constrain them together. So what constraints are, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But right now, let's go over to the concrete and let's first add that. And wait, what? Wait, let me check something. Okay, actually, I'm gonna create a new cache as well. So, yeah. Since the wall that I created for my first project is a bit offset from the one we created, so I'm gonna just read this to disk real quick. Oh, not every frame. So make sure you select save current frame and save to disk. So load from disk, and where's the other wall coming from? Actually, ah, okay, it's gone now. Yeah, once we pack it, it's actually gonna look a bit awkward, but it's, all the fracture is still there, so all that what we created is actually still here. Okay, so now let's continue and create a new material factor. And we're gonna create basically the exact same setup that we created before. So let's start by actually naming it, and we're gonna name this concrete, since that's what we're actually fracturing. It's our concrete. And this time we're not gonna turn on fracture per piece, since it's not necessary, I think, but you can turn it on for some extra details. And we can also leave this, the fracture name or the fracture IDs, it's actually called how it is. Just if you want to add some more detail, which I actually gonna do, you can still, as before, you can increase the scatter points in the fracture, and it's gonna fracture some more. And let me actually turn it up a bit more. You see, we get some nice fracture right here. So now I'm gonna copy our IO from before and name this concrete fracture, and because I'm saving it dependent on how this is named, so I can actually just hit the save button, and now I can just pack it together with the avidi pack node. So now we can merge them back together. And now when we look at up here, we have our bricks together, our bricks back here, and our concrete, but now they're actually fractured. And you wanna, why did we pack it? So otherwise you would need to create 3 merge nodes, so one for the constraints, one for the geometry, and one for the proxy geometry. So we pack it and leave out 1 merge. So actually we need to unpack it again so we can handle the constraints. So this is gonna give us the fractured object merged to one thing. And now we need to connect the bricks to the concrete, and we also need to connect all the bricks with each other. So to do that, we're gonna create an avidi by avidi constraints from roots and plug this in, and and we want the input group, so we're gonna connect all of the bricks right now. So the input group is bricks, since that's a group how we named the brick group, and we want to name this group here brick const for constraints or something like that, so we can find it. It's really important on all this RBD stuff that all your names are unique and not double somewhere, so actually everything works fine. So if we display the constraints now, which is actually kind of like the glue that holds everything together, if we display that now, we can see that we have all these lines, all these connections between our bricks. So if I template this, so we can see that actually here all these structures are getting held together now by this constraint here. So that's perfect. So now we're gonna do another avidi from roots, and we're going to connect our concrete wall to the how's it called, to the bricks. So to do that, we're gonna click groups, group to group, and for the group 1 we're gonna select our bricks, and for the group 2 we're gonna select our concrete. And as you can see right here, let me show it a little better, you can see that the bricks are connecting to the concrete. Wait, maybe I'm gonna change that to wireframe. You can see it a bit, that it's like right here, it's connected to this fracture right here. So we now connected all that together. Perfect. I actually like to actually write this out to disk as well. So I'm gonna put down another rigid body input output. And here I'm actually gonna load the geometry I created earlier, which is right here. So hip slash final slash and this, and load from disk, and voila. Never mind. Wait. Let me check. It should be actually. Oh yeah, I need to rename actually to wall constraints, and this is the wall I created for the thread of this tutorial, and I'm gonna continue working with that. So this is actually it for fracturing and constraining, so putting all the pieces together, part of the tutorial. So let's now come to the last part of our tutorial, to actually destroy it, to actually destroy our geometry. And we're going to start by putting down an RBD configure node, which allows us to configure the type of material we actually using in our wall. So I'm gonna select our bricks right here, and Houdini actually has, under the type concrete, we actually have a brick preset which we can use, which is quite handy. And I'm gonna create a second group, since we also have normal concrete, and I'm gonna select concrete right here. And for the concrete type, in my example I use concrete foamed, so I'm gonna select that again. So there. You also want to check sleeping and enable sleeping, and set this to 1 for both of them. So sleeping and enable sleeping. What this actually does is it's yeah, it disables to calculate all the fractured pieces until there's actually a force hitting them. So it's quite it saves resources, which is really nice. So you want to turn that on. But actually, for right now, just to show you something you don't need to follow, I'm gonna turn this off. So I'm gonna show you something. So I'm gonna drop down our bullet solver. You can drop this down as well, but you don't need to disable the sleep. I'm gonna turn it on back on in a second. And I'm gonna plug these in. And I'm gonna enable a ground plane. And when I play this back now, actually, I don't plug the constraints for now. You see that everything is collapsing under the power of gravity, I would say. So wait, actually, let me just put the display flag on the bullet solver. So you actually see it's actually working and everything is falling. So we put this back on. It shouldn't fall anymore. It should actually be quite solid. Perfect. And now I'm gonna put sleeping and enable sleeping back on since we're gonna need it. So a problem that we would have if we would add some wind or some kind of dynamic that influences all of fractured pieces is that if it's pretty light already, it's gonna be blown away since our wall is not connected to the ground. So let's do this. And we're gonna do that by creating a bound. And we're gonna create a bound. It actually doesn't matter if you choose the left or the right. So I just gotta choose the right because it looks nicer. And I put the lower padding to like, so you can see right here. I gotta put the lower padding to like 1.5 or something. Wait, let me. What is it actually? Why can't you see it? Okay, but it should be actually be there, and then you can plug that back into the avidi configure and move that down a bit. And on the sleeping, on the avidi config, actually not on the sleeping, but on the active, you can check use bounds for both of them. So active use bounds, and if you check visualize active right here and hit enter, and now do that and do flat shaded, you see it's all green for some reason. What is that? So you actually should see some black parts at the bottom here, but I don't see any right now, and I don't know why. Let me check in my original file. So wait, let me show that and template that, and I'm gonna switch to wireframe. So wait, why is this not showing anything? -1.5. Oh wait, -1.5. Ah, okay. So now you can actually see the bound, and now when we click on here, we should actually see, when I go back to flat shaded, you can actually see that some of the parts are black, which means they're disabled, so they are actually not being calculated in the simulation, and they will be fixed to the ground. And actually gonna increase this to like -2. So actually all the entire ground is fixed to the ground. Also, all the bottom is fixed to the ground. Yeah. Are we continuing? Let's continue by doing the explosion. For the explosion, I actually didn't do it myself. It's a file that you can get from the Houdini content repository or something. I'm gonna put a link down into the description so you can actually also download it, since I'm just gonna merge the file. I'm just gonna merge the file into my working project right now. So it's actually cooking. I'm gonna cancel that, and what we're going to need is all the stuff that is inside explosion. You can just Control X or so cut, and you can delete this one, and then you can jump back in here and Control V and paste it. So sometimes Houdini decides to crash, but luckily it doesn't right now. So what we're going to do, since if you visualize this and continue to like a frame, you see actually the source the pyro is going to be created from, which is this, and you see it's quite big for what we're going to create, and it's actually also not rotated correctly, because if you can check the volume rasterize, you can see this is like the back of the wall, so this should be right here, so it goes out of the wall and not like straight into it. So what I did is I dropped down a transform and put it right here, and you can visualize, or you can visualize that, doesn't matter actually. And I translate it by 4.2, 0.8 and 90 degrees. So now if we template our wall over here, we can actually see it's on the correct height. But it's still way too big. As you can see, it's over the top, and we don't want that. So we can click on the pyrosolver side explosion, and I changed my scale down, or the initial size right here, to 0.4, and now we can see it's actually creating explosions that are actually in a scale that fit our wall. Yeah. Nothing more to change here actually. So now we're going to the complex part. It's not too complex. You can still follow along hopefully without any problems. So, but first of all, delete these two nodes. We don't need them. And probably save. Hello? Oh, not responding, perfect. So what we actually need to do right now is we need to bring the velocity from this pyrosolver into our avidi bullet solver. So to do this, we first of all need to check that on the, where is it? First of all, on the avidi bullet solver, on the constraint names, we can delete soft and hard, because we don't have any soft or hard constraints, but we have glue. So if you check here, it's actually named glue everywhere. Where we no, where is it? Not in the configure, right? I don't find it right now. So all constraints are held together by glue. So we actually gonna select glue right here, and I also gonna go to the solver, into the forces, and add drag and drag spin, so we have some air resistance in our simulation, so our fracture pieces don't go crazy and fly through the air. Yeah, on the bullet object, what you want to do is this actually depends on the explosion you're gonna use. In my example, I'm gonna put avidi down here, since we're transferring the velocity attribute here and override attribute from sub, so we can override in attribute. So we're gonna override the velocity, and to do that, I'm gonna go a bit more down and put on an attribute transfer right here, and put in the proxy, and I also gonna put in the transform right here, but I actually need to put this into a point wrangle before, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna do something with it right there, and now plug that in here, and this is going to be fed into the third slot here. So we actually grab our proxy geometry, add the velocity from our pyrosim here, and then add it back to the solver before we're actually solving it. What we need to do, so actually if we drop in the null here and put that to the constraints and go to the spreadsheet, you don't need to follow right now, but just to show, go to primitives with this impact right here, and impact is basically a number that's and if that's over 10,000, our constraints are going to break. So we need to set this impact based on our velocity. Since when the velocity is high, we need a high impact value. So if the impact value is high, the constraints are going to break, and so on. So we need to link the impact to our velocity, if that makes sense, hopefully. So let's start in the point wrangle that I just added here. We're gonna say float, so f at impact. So we're gonna create the float impact on the points we're getting from the pyroburst source side explosion, from the transform node here, and we're gonna calculate the length of our vector, so v for vector, and the vector we're gonna calculate is v, so velocity. So if I put this down and look here, you can actually see we have an impact attribute right here. And if I go to the spreadsheet right here and go to the point attributes, you can see impact right here. And you can see that it's 23, 24, 26, whatever. And this is the length of the velocity vector actually. And our constraints are set to need an impact of 10,000. So we actually need to increase the scale of our impact. So to do that, we're gonna multiply it by channel float, and I'm just gonna call that mult. And now click right here, and now we're gonna get this multiplier right here. And while testing around, I came up with that 400 is actually the best scale. So we'll get some that reach over 10,000, so the constraints are going to break, but also some that don't, so some constraint won't break. So that's what we're going to put. Now we go to the attribute transfer and check uncheck primitives, and in the attribute in the points we want to transfer the velocity, so v, and in the conditions we're gonna turn down the distance threshold because this is way too high for what we're doing, so turn it down to 3, and that should work perfectly fine. So what ground plane has 0 volume, Yeah, that's fine. So now, if we play this back, you see that actually our explosion is advecting our wall pieces, and it's pushing that away. So just as a comparison, if I put this and go back and play this back, actually nothing happened. So you see, this is actually our velocity from the pyro that is doing the advection of our avidi. So, but you recognized when I play this back again that after frame 12 or something, the pieces start hovering in the air and stop moving. And this is because in here we override the attribute velocity every frame, and at this point, at frame 17, if I check in the spreadsheet right here, we can see that our velocity is actually 0. So every frame we're setting the velocity on the RBD bullet solver to 0, and 0 means not moving at all. So this is the reason why it's freezing. So what we need to do is we want to transfer we still want to transfer the velocity from our pyro, so from from right here over to our bullet solver, but we only want that to happen on the, let's say, first 5, 6 frames. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to frame 5 and I'm gonna right click on the checkbox, really important to right click on the checkbox right here, and I'm gonna set keyframes, set keyframe, and we now see we have a keyframe. And now I'm gonna go to the next frame, to frame 6, and I'm gonna uncheck the box, and I'm gonna do 2 keyframes and commit change. And now if we scroll between here, you can see that the checkbox is actually right here, if you look at that, is actually turned on and off. So after frame 6, we no longer transferring any velocity from the pyro, which actually doesn't matter because the velocity of the pyro is actually 0 after frame 6. So if you play this back now, we see that we advect the RVD, and after frame 6, the normal velocity which is calculated by our bullet solver kicks in, and everything is under gravity and everything just happens normal. So we can see, yeah, it pretty much completely destroyed our wall, which is pretty nice since that's what we want. So now we just need to do the other side, because we need our pyrosolver to interact with the bullet solver as well. So since it needs to collide with it, since otherwise we see our explosion going through a wall that is still there, which is pretty bad. So to do that, wait, actually I'm gonna cache our wall destruction out here. Or actually I'm gonna load back in what I had before, which is that one. So I'm gonna load that one from disk, and here you need to save the entire frame range. My clip that I did in the end is actually 120 frames long. So what you saw in the beginning is actually just 120 frames, which is totally fine. And if you click load from disk right here and visualize it, that might just be Houdini crashing. Oh no, there we are. So we can now play this back, and it's reading from disk and everything is perfectly fine. So yeah, perfect. What we now want to do is we want to get our geometry. So I'm just gonna put a no. You don't need to do that, it's just for better organization. And that is our actually wall destruction, or however you want to call that. And then we actually want to make a collision from that. So what we gonna do there is luckily a node called collision source. So just to visualize, I can put 2 nodes down here. So 1 and 2. And I'm gonna put this right here. So I visualize that. You see, this is actually the geometry that we output. So if it's actually animated and everything's working fine. And this here is a VDB. So from Voxits. And this is exactly what we need, because if we click on the pyrosolver right here, you see it actually needs a collision voxel size, so a collision volume that we need to link, and we're gonna put that right here, volumes for collision. We're actually gonna move that more down a bit. And yeah, this looks a bit rough in my opinion, so let's increase the voxel size to, wait, where is it? Volume to 0.05. 0.05, I think. I put it to 0.05, yep. Just really important, whenever you change the detail on the collision source, you actually need to change it right here, because it needs to be the same, no, right here. It needs to be the same here and here. And now you can basically link this right here, and we don't need this now anymore. And then you can just cache out your simulation, and then you're done. That's basically it. So I'm just gonna load my my cache from disk, which I already created. So yeah, what you want to do is you want to put the voxel size for the simulation a little higher. So I cached on 0.08, which is actually not quite high res. So if you want a really crisp result, probably just add a 0 right here. But be aware that on 0.08 on my PC, it took 2 hours to cache it out and to simulate it. So yeah, you need to plan with some time when you sim that. Probably maybe sim overnight or whatever. But for the tutorial purposes, I'm just gonna use this medium res. So if I check that, why is it not loading? It should be. Wait. Actually, we can just disconnect that right here and put this right here. I don't know why it's actually not showing anything right now. Why is that? And the stuff is actually still there. Well, it doesn't matter actually. I just gonna close this project and gonna show you the final project. So after you cache everything out, you can enable the sharpen density or disable. I decide to enable it, and then you're gonna put the out that you got, the geo out, the destruction, and the whatever. So either the switch or the sharpen density into merge, and yeah, just display that. And we're gonna skip through to frame 37 or something, and skip actually 1 frame up. I actually see my volume right here, what I can flat shade it. So yeah, you can see our really nice explosion, which looks amazing, and our debris and our not debris, our fractured pieces flying around. I actually maybe gonna make a follow-up tutorial on how to add some smoke to the flying pieces and add some debris. Not sure about that, so if you are interested in something like that, write it into the comments. So basically for rendering, what you want to do is select the camera that comes with the project we merge. Select the lock here and then position the camera where you want it. And then you print, you basically go to out, create a new mentor node with these settings. So you want to allow motion blur, it's physically based rendering, increase the pixel samples to 4 and 4, and stochastic samples, put that to 10. And on the objects, force object, you're gonna put that to wall, force light, spotlight, pyro volume light, or pyro env light, so that all these lights are actually in. And then when you want to render it and put your camera right here, you're gonna put your output picture or whatever you're gonna export it right here, put a path, and yeah, put the frame range. I did it in two steps, so it's 3060, but it should be f-start, so it's 1 to 120 or whatever however long your animation is, and then you just hit render to disk, and then in After Effects or whatever software you use, you can put the image sequence together to a nice animation. Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Twitter. I'm gonna put my Twitter link into the description, as well as my Discord. So if you have any questions, either put them into the comments or message me on Twitter or wherever, and I try to respond as fast as possible. I hope I could help some of you, since when I started learning Houdini, I was at the point where I wanted to create something like that, and I simply wasn't able to, and I didn't find any tutorials, and yeah, this is why I created this tutorial, and I hope I could help some of you. So enjoy the rest of the day, have a great time, peace.